Everyone, thank you ever so much for coming to our latest masterclass. And today we're going to be talking. The title of the session is "Well, email isn't broken. The infrastructure is email deliverability for scaled go-to-market teams." So we hear a lot about email deliverability not really working. Maybe there's things going into the spam box, but there are ways that you can fix this and solve this. So I'm gonna be introducing our guest in a moment, who's going to be talking through today on this really important topic and giving you some actionable takeaways for you to use afterwards. Um, we're going to be doing this session as a Q&A between myself and the guest. But if you do have questions that you want to ask, put your hand up on the not like this, but like put your hand up on Zoom and or the question into the chat, and we'll get you involved and get it answered. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest, Vincent. Vincent, hello. Maybe you want to just quickly introduce yourself. Tell us why you're the world expert on email deliverability.
World expert, that's a good one. But
No
yeah,
pressure.
yeah, exactly. No pressure. First of all, super glad to be here, guys. I'm recognizing one familiar face, at least Stefano, where we used to work together back at Oracle. So it's glad to see you here, mate. And then maybe others. I see Linda as well that has connected. So I definitely know a few of you. But the reason for that is because I've been in your shoes a couple of years ago or many years ago. Don't count them anymore. I led sales development teams both from inbound and outbound for multiple companies such as Tipco Software, Oracle, Camunda, both at EMEA level and global level as well. So running teams between 10 to about 50 people spread across inbound, outbound, hybrid roles, right? So I'm very used to what you guys do or what you guys are facing on day-to-day basis. And then in my last couple of years, I've decided to get myself out of the corporate world and try to do a bit of consulting for startups. And most recently, I went into go-to-market engineering. I discovered Clay, like some of you may have already started to use or at least have heard of. And as part of my latest fractional experience, which I've worked for a company called Cold IQ. Maybe some of you know them as well. They're expert into, primarily delivering outbound services for companies, right? Small and big. And I was their fractional manager, looking after the delivery and the sales side of things. And this, to be honest, for me, even though it was only this year, was a big eye opener around delivery, email infrastructure, and so on. And the main reason for that was that for every single client we did outbound work for, part of the package was to set them up with subdomain, subdomains and subdomain inboxes. And at first, I didn't quite understood. So to be very frank and honest with you guys, as an old SDR leader, it never occurred to me that this was such an important topic. It For some reason I was focused on the performance of my team. I was focused on the copy of the emails. I was focused on the open rate, the click rate, like probably most of you are. And I never really thought of, at least I wasn't even educated on, the email infrastructure piece, because being part of large companies, right? TIPCO was a 5,000 employees. Oracle, as you know, is massive. And you guys may work in very different size companies too. So this is to be taken into consideration as well, right? Meaning, if you work in a smaller structure, you might be much closer to those problems and much closer to your IT team, and therefore having those conversations. And if you work in much larger organizations, this is probably not even in your remit, not even in your thoughts, because you're like, we're going to use the emails that we are being provided in. We just plug in Salesloft or Outreach or any of those tools, and then we blast emails, right? But this is where things can actually go wrong. And then oftentimes when we actually look and we go to an external provider like Cold IQ, and they're suddenly able to produce great results compared to what we do internally, we're like, why is so different? And actually, to me, in the last 8 to 10 months, the difference, of course, can come from multiple pieces, but the big foundational element is the email infrastructure, right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. But I think today in the group, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we have probably three type of people. We have some of you who don't know much about it and never really thought about it as a key component of your outbound or even inbound follow-up piece. The second one is probably some of you that have thought about it, have some level of knowledge, but you face challenges internally to actually test it, right? Because people don't believe, because they see risk with subdomains. And then maybe some of you that have also tried this approach and have actually seen it being successful. And if there is that in the audience, I'd love to know because, of course, you're on my side then in being able to say, hey, actually, we've tried that at our company and it works.
Maybe we could ask that as a question for everyone. If I put it in the chat, if you want to put either the number one, you don't know too much about it. Two, the ones who know but face challenges. Three, the ones who are tried and know how it works. Okay. Oh.
Glad to see Jeremy. You know it works. Woohoo! Okay, a
Okay, great.
lot of ones and twos. This is great. Okay,
So
cool.
should we? Yeah. Should we move on to the? Did you want to share
Yeah,
something first, Vincent?
yeah, the only last piece I would like to say very quickly, this is why I put this picture in the background. It's actually from a beach close by here in Portugal, but there is a mini castle on it. And the reason why I think this reflects exactly what we talk about is to me now, email infrastructure should be seen as the foundational element of your outbound piece. Without a good foundation, you're going to look at your email deliverability and your response rate, and sometimes you're going to be, our copy is not great. We need to improve our copy. But actually, the problem isn't coming from in your copy, it's coming from the fact that your emails are not even landing into people's inboxes, right? So you got to question that piece as well. Now, the other aspect is I'm not technically expert into it, and so I use an external partner, which I will talk to you about at the end of the call. I've been able to get a really nice discount with them, and I'll show you what they have on their website that can also help you so that you can directly engage with experts to find the answers that you need. So for the ones of you that internally you're facing challenges, pushback, or whatever, you know you can get in touch with them, ask the right questions, and get the right answers from experts that deal with that on daily basis.
Brilliant. So why don't we want to move on to the first point then? So um, it'd be good to know from you and from what you've seen about why most outbound emails fail before it's even sent.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great question. And I really think, and to be honest, I used to be the same as well, is that most leaders thinks and still think today that copy and volume will solve the problem of getting more answers, right? A good copy with volume to the right ICPs, and this is another problem. Oftentimes, it's not even sent to the right people, right? But actually, the truth is that the foundation isn't really clean. Your emails are being lost before they're even being sent because you don't have the right email infrastructure. You don't have the right setup inside of that email infrastructure. And so you can send as much as you want. You can send with the best copy you want. It's just not going to even land in the inboxes, right? Spam filters typically don't read the content of your email first. what they check is your identity and the past behavior of your email IP, right? And your domain reputation. So even looking at the copy, it looks like your domain reputation. And so therefore what happens is when you scale or when you want to scale that, even a small mistake quickly multiply. So what's potentially fine for 20, 30, 40 emails suddenly becomes a toxic problem when you start to send 5,000 emails across your team. Okay?
Sorry, it was a very loud trolley that was going past me, so I was on mute for a bit longer. Um, Great, and so if we have that piece about before even going out, what are some of the common infrastructure mistakes then that SDR leaders are making, but they might not even realize?
I mean, listen, the biggest one and that's the one I've done too, right? And so I'm absolutely happy to recognize that is that it's simply that by not being aware of this being such an important piece, is that we just use the company's domain. We just use the main company domain. And therefore it's like basically using a car going 100 miles an hour, but if you crash, everybody loses from it because the reputation of that domain is then damaged. So for a large multinational company, they usually have technical teams looking after that. But for a smaller size firm, that can be really damaging the reputation of your entire domain and how you scored on Google searches and stuff like that, right? So also, poor data hygiene basically kills trust, and that's why inside of your CRM, you gotta check and you gotta make sure who you're sending those emails to. Are they the right emails? Are they being validated? Because high bounce rate with low quality emails basically is interpreted by Google and so on as you don't know your audience, and therefore we're going to slowly start to mark your domain down and impact your deliverability. And over time, this results in the email not landing in the email inboxes anymore. And the last one I would say is just too much traffic, right? So if you send too much email straight away from one domain, again, the system interprets that as being robotic and not a human, right? So obviously, as you know, they try to block spam filtering and stuff like that. So if you send too much from one domain, it's just going to be interpreted that way.
So we just had a question come through from Stefano, and I think we were going to talk about this a little bit later, but maybe in a good way he's jumped the gun, which is good. But do you think the issue can be solved at a business level in terms of this, in terms of the infrastructure deliverability, or do you need to have IT's involvement in this?
I mean, it's a great question, and the reason I say it's a great question is because it depends the size of your business. Stefano, as we know both each other in your previous company in Salesforce, this is a huge machine, right? So I'm assuming that if you, as one leader of a team, or even as a senior director of a team of 30 SDRs, you're still a small fish in a massive machine, right? And so I think it's about education into big, 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 big firms, right? Educate the layers, make sure you get in touch with your IT folks, make sure you get them aware. I'm going to show you at the end of the call this external support partner that I recommend to use, where you can find, non-bias information that you can then share internally to build your business case and education, right? And then in smaller firms, typically it's more of a consensual conversation with the other leaders, making them aware of the potential impact. Again, leveraging content from that partner, for example, and even running mini tests. I'll show you very quickly how to run a mini test on your deliverability. And if it signs red or orange, you should really already start to be, wow, we have issues, we need to fix them.
Great. And then just one last question from the audience, and then we'll move forward. And I think James and Elena, I'll combine yours together because I think they're both in the same vein. What would be, on a practical level, what would be the key change at an infrastructure level? Would you recommend a subdomain used only by the sales and only by the SDR department?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, to be honest, what I do if I was in your shoes running an SDR team with outbound, I'll try to prove the improvement of results, or at least improve the quality of what I'm doing to do it on my level. So if you have the ability to have a bit of budget, buy subdomains, for example, through the partners I'm going to talk about, you can create your mini sub infrastructure for you, for your department, and then grow it, right? Then it gives you ammunition to show the results, to show the improvements, and then to potentially grow into other areas of the business.
Right. So we've started touching a little bit on this already, but it'd be good to go in a bit more depth about how the infrastructure directly impacts deliverability and performance. So you've mentioned a few bits already, but it'd be good if you go in a bit more detail about the other impacts that are made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we've touched on a few of those already, but one thing that is super key is once your domain is being flagged, and you typically don't know that. I mean, as an SDR leader, I had no clue what my domain was because to me, that wasn't part of my responsibility. That was under marketing or whoever. And I was just using the emails that were provided to me, right? But once it's flagged, you're fighting an uphill battle. And by the way, just not just for you, but also for your marketing team, because if they use the same domain and they're not aware of that, they're gonna have the same problem with the deliverability of their email campaigns. So everybody pays the price basically. Recovering that is gonna take time and it hurts every other sender in your company, meaning your sales team, your CSMs, everybody, right? So that's super key to take in consideration. And at the end of the day, the reason why is because deliverability sits at the very beginning of what we do. It sits upstream of the performance, right? So if you have a poor setup, and that's why I referred to that castle at the beginning, if you have poor foundation in front of the ocean, there's no way your house is going to last for years. You have to have really strong foundation. And to me, infrastructure is the foundational of anything that we do in outbound, SDR, or inbound, right? Anything you go after that is bonus. So writing a great copy with a poor foundation isn't going to get you the best results that you could or hope to get, right? Now, on the opposite way, though, it's kind of a circular and kind of self-promoting prophecy, if I can say, which means if you work on it and you have good results, meaning you have good deliverability rates, you are careful with the quantity of emails you're sending, this will over time do the opposite, meaning it's going to boost your reputation, improve your deliverabilities. So over time, you get stronger and stronger and stronger, and therefore you can continue to increase the quantity of emails you send, right? So small fixes compounds over time, and very often drive much, much better results than just changing the copy. I'll give you a very simple example. Hopefully, it will talk to you. One of the clients we had at Cold IQ who wanted to use us for an outbound campaign, they came to us because their outbound team was averaging about 0.7, 0.9 reply rate on their email. And they're like, can you please help us crack the nut because we're doing everything we can, but we haven't succeeded. The first question we asked them was, how do you use your emails? What is the email infrastructure you have? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, we're like, well, do you use subdomains? Do you use domain domains? Like, what is it? And they're like, I have no clue. We never looked into it. We looked into it for them. The deliverability was absolutely down, right? So we proposed a subdomain build, like we talk about, right? And just by changing that, they went from 0.8% reply rate to over 5% reply rate, right? No difference in their copy, no difference in their data, no difference in who they were sending email to.
Daryl, did that answer your question that you just posted? You're on mute, mate.
Speaking to myself on mute, yeah.
It's all right.
For the most part, yeah, I think so. Is it, I think mainly if we're trying to quantify like the impact on changing to a subdomain over time, what else are you looking at? Is there anything else other than the response rate?
Sorry, say that again.
Is there anything else that you're using to measure or compare the impact of implementing a subdomain other than response rate was kind of the question. I know obviously that's the most
Yeah,
meaningful impact,
yeah,
but
yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, well, I mean, listen, you can look at a lot of other things, but because it's at the very beginning of what you do, right? What's going to happen is if you have a better response rate and you keep everything the same, ultimately because you have more responses, you're going to end up having more meetings booked out of those responses, which means you're going to have more pipeline booked. Now, if those responses, on top of being better because you get more of those, you improve your copy, then you improve even further the number of meetings you're going to get and the number of pipeline that's going to come out of it. Does that help?
yeah, I think what I was trying to get to is that specifically how can I prove or say that, the impact was from the subdomain change, right? For example, I know you're saying, they had a 0.5% response rate and then it went to 5. Lots of different factors can obviously influence that. I'm just curious to kind of understand how you can prove that it was impacted by the subdomain, right?
Yeah, so run an A/B test, simple as that, like you do for a campaign, for a sequences inside of your team. If you see that the reply rate across your team is pretty poor, let's say, I don't know, I'm just giving you an example. You have a team of 5 guys working in UK or in the UK territory, because of course in Europe we also play with the complexities of the different regions. But let's say you want to prove the point in UK, you have a team of 5. You're like, for one guy, I'm going to set him up with a subdomain, right? With multiple sending inboxes, and only this person is benefiting from it. And then you see what you get. If you get a difference, ultimately you prove your point. And then cost-wise, to be honest, it's not going to be super expensive to also do that just for one couple of email inboxes. Like, you're not talking thousands of euros, right? It's not super expensive to do that.
And we've got a couple of more. I've got one or two more questions, then we'll get through to the finale piece because we're coming up near to the end, Vincent. Quick fire question here. If your domain reputation is bad already, does that not impact the subdomain?
No, that should not. And the truth answer here is I'm not 100% sure, because again, that would be like more of a technical answer that I will check with the provider I'm talking about. But from what I know personally, I don't think so, because the subdomains, all they do is they are basically using your company domain and an additional piece. So let's say your company ABC, and then it's call me, ABC call me domain, abccallme.com, right? And therefore, for the filters and anything, it's a completely different domain. Has nothing to do with your existing domain. Okay, so you're starting from scratch with a brand new domain. That's the idea.
Right. And then the final one is 5% still a realistic email response rate considering how spam filters have changed? If not, what would a good benchmark be?
So this is a good question, right? And actually, that's a good transition, if I can say, Dave, to share my screen onto
Yeah.
the provider I was talking about, because I know we had other points we wanted to talk about, but let me share that with you. Do you see my screen, guys?
Yes.
Or everybody on the screen? Yeah. So this is the IT Dukes is the partner I'm working with with all our clients, and I recommended you to use. By the way, we have agreed of a special discount for everybody here, so I'll also share that. If you use the referral link I sent you, you have a 10% discount on everything. I can put you in touch with them and help out with communication. But to answer the question about email deliverability, he had written a piece. Now it's a bit of an old one because it's from January last year. He might update it this year, but he had written a piece on deliverability here, right? Now, obviously, everything has to be taken with a pinch of salt, I'd say, because the email delivery, I don't know who asked the question and which industry you're on, but the email deliverability you see in your industry might look very different for someone else in a different industry as well, right? But as guidelines, you can see here he was talking about 65% over average open rate, 3 to 5% reply rate. So when you get to 5% reply rate in outbound, it's typically considered quite good. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Because it's what the data shows. So that's great.
So you can go into it, right? On this website, which we will share after the call, you have a lot of email metrics that you can look into. You have volume versus performance, right? You have what triggers the spam filters. So a lot of really, really cool information. That's the reason why I really advise you to use this type of outside providers because, to be honest, we can't be aware of everything and anything, right? This starts to be some technical stuff, but that will give you some proof points and additional information, one, to educate yourself, but also to educate people around you in the business.
Awesome. So what we'll do as well, Vincent, is if you show me the referral code, I'll send it to everybody post event, so they can all have access to it as well.
Sure. One of the cool thing as well is on his website, and I did a test myself this morning, you see, just to see. I had an email deliverability rate of 78, which was good. Which provided me a lot of information around the authentication, the content, the typical importance, technical setup, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, but these are very important technical setup that needs to be done in your email infrastructure, right? And even some recommendations. And what you do basically is on his website, you go in the IT Duke toolkit, and inside of the toolkit, you can have a lot of free tools, right? With email deliverability tester here that I've completed this morning to easily check where you stand, right? And to also just, if you do it today, great, after the call, because we've just talked about it, but maybe put it in your agenda as a reminder to do it like once a quarter or once every 4 months, because this will change over time for sure. So having a good deliverability today is good, but it might not look the same in 4 months' time or 5 months' time.
That's great. And we're at time. So Vincent, thank you ever so much. We'll get these links over to everybody at the end of the call. I'm going to add this recording to our YouTube channel. You'll get the link for that in the mail. Make sure you like and subscribe. I need to get better at this, how all the cool people do. Vincent, thank you ever so much. Stefano, I'm going to see you tomorrow, I believe.
Yes,
Claire,
yes.
I think I'm going to see you tomorrow. Brilliant. And great, it was a great session. Thanks ever so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys, and feel free to connect via the Slack community if you have any questions or on LinkedIn. And yeah, happy to help. Hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you.